Wheelies are like, they're freaking awesome. Everybody loves a wheelie. So, the chicks love wheelies. So, but basically it's so useful when you're off-road riding, you know, controlled wheelies. So, what I find helps is your body. We tend to get a little bit lazy on the bike and not use our suspension. You know, the more body you put into anything, the easier it's going to become. So before I do a wheelie, every time, or an obstacle, any log or anything like that, I always sort of preload, I compress the suspension. So this is why our foot pegs are in this central position on the bike. So when I compress down, you can see the suspension works evenly together. So you want to have your suspension, so when you compress down, it works evenly together. If one's not working, then it's going to be a little bit off-putting. So generally when I'm coming up for a wheelie, compressing down, my body's in a central position. I'm not really far forward, I'm not really too far back. Compressing down. With the wheelie, I generally like to have the clutch because it helps my timing and it helps me be more precise. I really like to add the front brake in as well, because what the front brake does obviously is when you compress it, it springs back. So coming in for the wheelie, the next thing is the rear brake. We really want to work on having that rear brake control, because when you're in that 12 o'clock oh shit moment, you need to get to that rear brake to bring the front wheel down. A lot of the times you can just rely on the clutch, but when you get past like that 11 o'clock mark, you need to be able to cover that rear brake. And when I say cover it, you only need a small amount of pressure on that rear brake to bring the front wheel down. So I like to try this when I'm practical wheelies when I'm standing up. So what I'll do, we want to work on doing a wheelie in a short amount of distance. So in a bike's length, we want to pop it up, hit that rear brake and bring it down. You know, in one bike length. We don't want to go up and power, try and hold it up. We want to get it up, hit that rear brake and bring it down. It's all about timing with this. So as soon as I compress, my clutch lever comes off, so that's going to help my timing. So really, like you probably hear there's not many revs, very low RPM to gain traction. If I was really aggressive with my takeoff, so really that throttle is like working very minimal. So yeah.
You said as soon as you compress, the clutch comes out.
Yeah, that's.
You're not trying to time it with the rebound.
I think it's. I think it just because it happens so quickly. I think if you can just work on, you compress it, release it, and it's gonna work together. So if you try and go down, wait for it to come up, then release it, it just happens too quickly. So
you almost got to be ahead of it.
You almost got to be ahead of it, yeah. I think that's the real trick. Yeah, I think if you can just focus on, as soon as you compress, releasing that clutch, and it's gonna pop. You can have that foot. I think it's really important to make sure that foot's covering that rear brake before you do it. So least you won't have to go searching for it when the front wheel's up, because you know it happens so quickly. You want to make sure your foot's covering. So before you do a wheelie, just like see what's my foot doing. Test that rear brake before you do it. Make sure your foot's securely ready on it. But yeah, this is really good clutch control, because every time I go over an obstacle or do a wheelie, my finger's still covering that clutch in case, you know, you get a handful of whiskey throttle. You're gonna cover that. You're gonna be safe because you've got the clutch going on. But you probably notice, like, it's a real safe technique because I'm going just at snail's pace. If I go up too high, I can always just step off the bike. So yeah, I think it's just more important. You don't have to go high. If you can start small, do small ones, but just get used to that rear brake. Yeah, and I feel like that's your best sort of practice to progress if you want to sort of start to do slow wheelies or you know, pivot turns. It's sort of having coverage of the rear is important, but this is really good. We want to work on timing. So, yeah.
Quick question, Tim.
Yep.
The stand-up that you're showing opposed to sit down, better for different types of situations?
Yeah, I feel like it probably feels better to sit down and do this.
I feel safer.
You definitely do feel much more comfortable, but the thing is, you want to be able to start by standing, because usually when you're doing obstacles, you're coming up to it, you're standing up. Most of the time you are up on the pegs. So when you master it standing up, you'll find sitting down so much easier. So I feel like, you know, start high.